let's take a look a little bit at what we found out here at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton and some of your statistics. As we found out, you had over 2,700, nearly 2,800 respondents, which is really good. You had a really good response rate, and when you figure that your average weekend Mass attendance is about 5,000, from what I understand, you've got about 5,000, between 4,500 and 5,000 a weekend in Mass. And we figure that about 70% of those who are in Mass on the weekend are eligible to take the survey. Because again, it's for 18 and over, okay? And so you've got then 18 and over, and then you've got some visitors. So 70% is about 100%. So if you figure 5,000, 70% of 5,000 is about 3,500. Okay, so 3,500 would be kind of our 100%. And 2,700, that's great data. Because you figure when we look at this, our analysts tell me that on a census-type survey like this, if you get 20%, you've got very accurate, reliable data that is reflective of the entire population. Okay, so we've got good data. And what we find is this, the grand mean. Now, grand mean of engagement. Okay, so we're going to get a little bit technical here, but we figure up each of those 12 items of engagement are measured on a scale of 1 to 5. And there is an average or a mean score for each of the 12 items of engagement. We add those 12 mean scores up and divide by 12, we get the grand mean. And that kind of tells us then, so it's a mean of the mean. So the grand mean, if you just kind of want one overall number of engagement, the grand mean will tell you that about your engagement. We pay attention to this, okay, because what we like to see is meaningful change over time. You may ask, okay, what's meaningful change? If we want to measure our progress, well, what could we expect as meaningful change? Meaningful change at the grand mean level for 2,700 respondents is 0.10. It doesn't seem like much, but that's meaningful change. So where you are is 3.44, and if we would come back and do this in a year to 18 months and we'd see you grow from 3.44 to 3.54, that means you've done some intentional things about growing engagement, okay? So that kind of gives us a one-number indication about engagement. Now we also have 9 items on the survey that measure individual spiritual commitment, which in the planning session tomorrow we're going to dive into a little bit more. But there are 9 items that measure individual spiritual commitment, and we do the same thing with them, and we add them up and divide by 9. And those questions are things like this that you'll remember. Because of my faith, I have forgiven people who've hurt me deeply. My faith is involved in every aspect of my life. Because of my faith, I have meaning and purpose in my life. I spend time in worship or prayer every day. Those are some of those spiritual commitment questions. And so the average on that is 4.17. Here's the Gallup 75th. Now this is our database of all of the churches and parishes, and when we look at the 75th percentile, it's not just Catholics, it's everybody, okay? 75th percentile, think about it like this. At the 75th percentile, that is a point above which 25% scored. So the 75th percentile, 25% scored above this number, 75% scored below. Okay? So the 75th percentile is important. We look at that top 25% because that tells us where excellence is. That tells us that top quartile, if you will, that top 25%, they really score better on their outcomes than everybody else. So that's kind of what we look for. So that's kind of the target you want to move toward. Okay? And you can see where you are in terms of 3.44 and 3.74. And you're about, what I would say in your grand mean is that's kind of the average in our database. Okay? And grand mean of commitment, you're a little bit closer, okay? So you've got a little bit higher degree of individual spiritual commitment than you do member engagement, which is typical, okay? So here's what we find. Engaged, 24% of your parishioners are engaged, 45% not engaged, 31% actively disengaged. What we want to see is this over time, is we want to see the engaged percentage go up, and the actively disengaged go down. And by the way, this is pretty much the norm for a parish, particularly a parish your size in the first time ME25. Okay, I took a look at this and say, yeah, I recognize these. But what we want to see is we want to see engagement go up and active disengagement go down. Okay, and so we want to start seeing a gap. We want to see it go from like this to like this. So if you want to look at this in terms of a chart, if you like the charts and graphs, it looks like this, okay? That's what engagement looks like at Elizabeth Ann Seton. And this is what it looks like when we compare it. So you've got 24% engaged, 45% non-engaged, 31% actively disengaged. This is what it looks like versus the U.S. overall, Protestants and Catholics together. You can kind of see where that is. And this is what it looks like when we look at Catholic engagement. Okay, so this is a 50% higher engagement score at 8 points, 8 percentage points higher on engagement than the National Catholics. So this is kind of what you look like in terms of these comparisons. So let's take a look at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton's, or ME25 top box scores. Okay, top box. Again, I had to ask what a top box score was. And think about it this way: it is a survey research term that just kind of makes sense. If you think about it this way, if you think about each of the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, that you've got a box beside each one that you can check on what you think. The top box you can check is a 5. This is the percentage of 5s. Why do we pay attention to 5s? Well, pay attention to 5s because we're used to thinking about a survey and thinking about it in terms of the numbers being equidistant apart. Like, right here, I'm kind of on the half-court line. That's the 3. And then you've got 4 a few steps over here, and you've got 5 a few steps over here. And the same for the 1s and the 2s. They're all kind of equidistant apart. And that's what they might look like on the paper on the screen, but psychologically, they're not at all like that. Psychologically, a 5 is clear out here. A 5 is a strongly agree. It's, oh, absolutely, positively, no doubt about it. Yes, 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 right here. That's a 5. 4, it's still a yes, but it's pretty close to the middle. A 4 is a yes, but. 4 is a yes, but. There's something. It's a qualified yes. There's something that's keeping me from saying absolutely. So 4 is over here. It's still a yes. 3's just on this side going down. A 3 is, quite honestly, 3 is a polite no. I don't want to be negative. I'll give it a 3. That's typically what happens with a 3. Okay? 2 and 1, not much difference. They're pretty close together. 2 is a no. 1 is a no, 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 no. Absolutely not. That's over here. We pay attention to the 5s because they're clear out there by themselves. A 5 gives you the strength of commitment to that particular item, and 5s will do something. 5s take action. So we pay attention to the 5s. And remember, we want to look at the positives over here. So we want to look at those 5s because they tell us something. So if we take a look at this, learn and grow. I have opportunities to learn and grow. And I'll just kind of put them all up here and kind of take a look and go through them here. But the expectations, 32, and now I'm comparing with our Gallup Catholic database. The Catholic parishes in our database, it's a 3-year rolling aggregate that we put together. And you can see expectations, you're kind of in line with where the rest of the Catholics are. Spiritual needs, a little bit higher. Opportunity to do best, a little bit higher. Recognition, a little lower. Leaders care about me as a person, a little bit lower. Encourage the development, a little bit. Opinions count, a little bit higher. Mission or purpose, a little higher. Members committed to growth, a little bit higher. Best friend, a little bit lower. And look at this. In the last 6 months, somebody talked to me about my progress. I told you that was the lowest one. Catholics, 12%, you're at 13%. So you're in good company. But it's, it is that lowest one. And then opportunities to learn and grow, 32% versus 37%. So as you can see, you've got some areas where we compare you with the other Catholic church parishes in our database. You've got some variation, but it really kind of looks in a lot of ways like what we would see in our Catholic database. So let's take a look at the dimensions. The how can we grow, do I belongs, what do I give, and what do I gets. And what we see is that your strongest dimension is here, the what do I gets. My spiritual needs are met, and I know what the expectations are. And you can see that you're kind of about the same here, a little bit higher on the how can we grow dimension. And what we want to see on this is we want to see your strongest scores at the bottom of the pyramid. That's where we want to take a look at and start looking at these first 6 questions. Expectations, spiritual needs, do what I do best, recognition or praise, the leader's care, and someone encourages my development. We want to pay attention to these and really strengthen the base because that's the foundation upon which engagement grows. So here's some of the other things. Outcomes and demos, the demographic questions. You know, we had those 7 demographic questions that are on that kind of wrap things up. Here's some of the things we found out in terms of your outcomes: inviting, serving, giving, and life satisfaction. 40% strongly agree that they're extremely satisfied with the way things are going in their personal life. And the Catholic in the Catholic database is 34%. Overall, it's 29%. So you've got a higher degree of life satisfaction to begin with. Okay, people pretty much like how their life is going. 14% strongly agree that they've invited somebody in the last month, and among Catholics, that's 13% strongly agree. So that's kind of what it looks like. 49% volunteer in the community less than 1 hour a week, and among Catholics, it's 46%. Okay. So the volunteering quotient is just a tick down from the Catholic. And 55% give less than $1,000 per year to their parish, and our Catholic database is 53%. 51% have been members more than 10 years, and 23% less than 3 years. So you've got about a quarter of your parishioners have been here less than 3 years. What does that mean? It means that when you talk about things that happened before 2009, they have no idea what you're talking about. And for those who have been members more than 10 years, 2009, that seems like just yesterday. That's the recent stuff. If it happened before, for a fourth of your people, they have no idea what you're talking about. It's outside of their experience. So think about this. Think about leadership and what goes on, and in representative of the leadership in terms of who's leading what within the parish. Do you have at least a quarter of your people, or more? I would say more, in leadership roles who have been here less than 3 years. Or so at one time a national study was done of Presbyterians, and in order to serve on the session, which is like the parish council, it's the governing body for those of you who are former Presbyterians, and there are a few of you out there, I know. I don't know for sure, but I just bet there are. What they found nationally is you have to be a member of your church about 27 years before you're on the session. What's that do? Yeah, what's that say to me if I'm new? Another thing too here as well is that 42% in your parish have an annual household income of $100,000 or more, and the Catholic average is 28%. And just something to think about: if 42% have an annual household income of $1,000 or more, and 55% give less than $1,000 per year, and it's just something to think about of what we're doing, and what that means in terms of your stewardship and your giving. The other thing too that I don't have here is 72%. I believe it's 72% have at least a college degree. Yeah. Very well educated, and that just is kind of off the charts in terms of comparison. So highly educated parish. So these are just some of the things we look at in terms of your outcomes and demos of what you're looking at. So that is kind of an overview of where we've been, an overview kind of looking at more in depth around engagement. A top line look at your data. There will be more coming out, more in depth around the data and the 9 pages of data that this has produced in kind of the weeks and the months ahead. So be looking for that as more of that comes out, and then particularly in terms of the action team and parish pastoral council of, okay, now that we know this and what you've told us, because really that's what surveys are. This is what you said. Here's what you told us about some things that are important in the life of the parish. Now what are we going to do? So we kind of be looking at that, because that was the whole point, is to what are we going to do based upon what you told us.